Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Kathy Eichelberger, and I'd like to welcome you to our Lunch and Learn today. We're going to talk about a buyer's consultation and how it can benefit you as you build your clientele and as you make relationships with people. So I'm supposed to introduce a little bit about myself. I used to be a teacher. I taught for 30 some odd years total, and I retired last May, but I got my license in 2021. And from there, I began just barely kind of working it. And then I guess it's been 2 full years now where I can say that I've really been in the business. So what I'm going to share with you, I've only been in the business a couple of years. A lot of it's been mistakes I've made, but things I've learned along the way. So hopefully you'll get a nugget or two out of it as we go through. I used to teach choir, and so teaching is my passion. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing buyer's consults, because it's kind of like teaching, especially those first-time home buyers. So John provided the people here today with some chicken nuggets. John Spragnether is our preferred lender that we use at the Gelman team, but he was unable to be here today. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a market update. So I did a little research today so I could kind of get you all caught up. So right now, as all of us know, if we're in the business, we are definitely seeing multiple offers on homes that are really, really in great shape. 10 plus offers on many, many homes. I just read an offer last week. There were 26 offers on it. So it's just super competitive. Comps right now, we kind of don't think they mean much of anything because it's such a forward-facing market. And so therefore we can look at them and kind of get an idea, but they really don't mean as much as they maybe have in the past. I really think, and we all do here at the Gelman team, that it's a great idea if your clients can get underwritten so that they can present their offers like a cash offer. That's very beneficial. So right now we have less than 2 weeks of inventory in some of the major markets. Kirkwood, Chesterfield, they're very, very limited on what the inventory they have. I just looked this morning for a client that's looking at Ellisville. There's one active listing in Ellisville today as we speak. Yep, one. There were two, but the one's going under contract because I called the agent. So there were two, but there's going to be one by the end of today. So we are really, really in a crisis. So our job has become more of finding homes for people off market and things. And that's how we're going to have to kind of survive in this market moving forward. Pending sales are down 16% from last year. And so we've been talking about this, that higher interest rates and lack of inventory have caused us to have less sales. And the closings are like 13.4% down. This is for the month of March. So I'm kind of giving you updates. Median sales price, though, has gone up 4.8% if you were to take all the areas of the St. Louis area, and they've gone up. But the big problem we have right now is that the housing sector is very undersupplied and we don't have enough builders building homes. Housing starts last year were at 1.191 million at this point in March. This year, they are only about 894,000. So it's just not going to stop, this lack of inventory. And so we have to really educate our buyers in what's happening. So, okay. These are the 3 areas I'm going to go through: serving the client, setting expectation, and search and showings. So and then we'll have a Q&A. So in serving the client, these are the questions that I've been using, and I find that they tell me a lot about the person, because what I want to do is I want to be a servant for these people. I mean, and if you don't have that kind of mentality with buyers, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because honestly, you are serving this client to the utmost potential you can do. So the first thing I like to do is if I haven't asked this question already, I want to find out what is prompting their move. Why do they want to purchase? And are you a first-time home buyer? Those are really important. I mean, that's to me, the most important question. You get their motivation and you find out if they're a first-time home buyer, then that's going to tell you kind of the amount of work you're going to have to do and education you're going to have to do with the client. And then I try to find out what would be that perfect, timeline to be in your new home. Obviously, some might be renting and their leases might come up. So we kind of look at that. It also tells you a little bit about their motivation. If they are in a situation where they can live in their family's basement forever, they might not be as motivated. So it kind of tells you a little bit about their motivation at that point as well. And then trying to find out, what do you want in an agent who will represent you? Some of your first-time home buyers have no clue to the answer to that question, and they just kind of look at you like, I just want you to help me find a home. But I can say, what do you like? Is communication really important? And just try to find out a little bit more about them in that way. And then this is a new question I've been using, and it really is insightful. Describe to me how you make a decision, because you can find out a lot. If they say, well, it's really hard for me to make decisions, and I go back, then you know how to handle that person versus someone who's like, I know right away, like I know right. And then it's really given me a lot of information I wouldn't have known necessarily if I didn't ask the question. And then what do you already know about the home buying process? What do you know? And usually if it's a first time home buyer, they don't know much. So you're going to be holding their hand the entire way. And then of course we establish their needs, kind of find out what do they really want. Now I'm taking copious notes when I'm doing this to, it helps me listen to, but then I have it in writing so I don't forget. And I establish their wants, and then what are those deal breakers? What will you not buy? I won't buy a house that's on a busy road. Okay. I won't buy a house that doesn't have a garage. Okay. So that really helps you. Then I kind of try to talk about what have you liked in your past home that you've lived in, even when you grew up in, or what do you like about your apartment? And that is also interesting because a lot of times they can't even articulate that. They have no idea, but it's helping them think about what am I going to want in a home? And I find that's been kind of helpful too. And then talk about, everyone kind of needs a home for a different reason. I mean, some people just want to crash and sleep and that's it. Some people want to have a home they're going to be able to entertain in. Some people want to have a home where the bedrooms are separate for different reasons. So that kind of talking about what's going to be important in the home functionality, I find that's helpful too. So those are kind of, I sit there and probably for about 15 minutes, I'm asking them these questions because I really want them to know that I'm listening to them, kind of reiterating what they've said, writing it down, and then referring back to that when we're looking at homes. And it really helps me, I think, in the process. So then the next thing is, this is the hardest part with a first-time home buyer, because we have a book we use at the Gelman team, but it can be really overwhelming for them. And so I tell them not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times during this buyer's consultation, this can be overwhelming. You're going to hear a lot of information, but what I do want you really to know is that I'm going to hold your hand through every part of it. It's not, you're going to be kind of scared and have a lot of questions. I'm going to be here to answer your questions. No question is stupid. I ask questions all the time in our team. And so, as you guys know, I ask questions because I want to know. Curious minds want to know. So I think no question is stupid. And then we talk about how I'm going to communicate. What is your favorite way of communication? Oh, I like text. Because then right then and there, if I haven't done it yet, if it's 2 people buying a home, I set us up on a 3-way chain and we've got our texts going already. And I make sure I have their phone numbers. So I'm already saying, I'm going to work with you kind of by just doing that little bit, like setting that expectation that we are going to work together. And then we talk about a buyer's agency. And what I tell my buyers is, I want this to be a good fit for you. I want it to be a good fit for me. And so we're going to go through this buyer's consult. I'm going to go out and show you a couple homes. And then I'm going to ask you, can I get you to sign this buyer's agency agreement that will help? I will be representing you in your transaction. And sometimes they're ready to sign it right away, actually after the meeting. And so I'll just send it over. It kind of depends how the meeting's going. And so I think that's really helpful. That's been actually this weekend, that was my goal. I got 2 or 3 buyer's agencies this weekend because I was just like, I am working for these people and now I'm scared. Even though I know these people, it just all of a sudden kind of freaked me out. And so I was able to kind of get those, and those conversations can be difficult if you've waited. So I think it's better to get it obviously up front. And some agents won't even show homes without it. That I would prefer that, but sometimes depending on the relationship, you kind of have to gauge that. But waiting really long is probably not the best idea because you could get screwed really fast. And then I talk about how we're going to, I've got their deal breakers, everything. We're going to go look at homes, talk about that process. Sometimes people only need to see 1 or 2 homes and they know what they want. Sometimes it's going to take a lot more, but with the lack of inventory we have, we're going to have to kind of just hone in on those ones that they really think are going to work for them. We write an offer and decide on contingencies. And I explain what a contingency is kind of right there. Like when I'm talking about them, I said, these are things in a contract that is to protect you as the buyer. These are things that are going to help the buyer. But in this market, the seller is looking for the least amount of contingency. So we're going to talk about that. But, it gets very confusing. They start looking at you with these glass eyeballs. I don't even know what you're talking about. And I say, we're going to take it one at a time. Don't worry. We talk about inspections. I talk about the different inspections that we usually recommend at the Gelman team. I explain to them that they'll get to choose their own inspector, but we can always give recommendations. We always make sure that they're certified and that sort of thing. And that you will have this say in who you get to inspect your home and kind of making them aware of that. if we haven't already addressed the loan, if they're not pre-approved yet, that's when I talk about the loan process. Tell them a little bit about, getting a loan, if they need that, or if they're cash, kind of finding that out. And then say, hey, I've got great lenders. I'm going to set you up on a text. And we do that even just sometimes right there, or I'll say, I'll do it right after this meeting and get you with our lender. Because a lot of times they'll be like, I have nowhere to go. I don't know. I have no idea who to go to. Some might say I have someone already, and we talk a little bit about that. And I say, well, are you pre-approved? And we go through that whole conversation, but it just kind of depends on where they are. And then we talk about the survey and why it's important to get a survey, talk about, that if you are going to want to put a fence in that yard, you're going to want to know where the boundaries are. This is so you can also get your whole land, covered by title. It's really important. This is the best time to do it so that if there are any issues with your yard or there are encroachments, that we can get those resolved before you close on the home. Then we talk about the walkthrough is what you do a few days, before obviously closing. And then we make sure that the house is in the condition it was when we wrote the contract, that there's no big holes in the wall from moving furniture, things like that. And then we talk about closing. And I always say it here, and then I say it like 5 other times during the transaction. You won't get your keys at the table at closing. A lot of people assume that they get the keys to the house right then, but your house has to fund, the funds have to be given to the seller. So I go through that because otherwise they think, I've had that happen. My first 2 transactions, I didn't really do that, and I regretted that. So that's something I learned. You just have to really explain it and explain it more than once, because they might not have heard it in this meeting. And then, we have a page in our book that goes through the do's and don'ts of a loan process, but everyone probably has a story, if they've been in the business long enough, of someone whose loan didn't go through because someone went out and bought all new pottery barn and furniture and a new wardrobe for their new home. And they opened a bunch of credit cards. What?
Is that your story?
I'm not saying.
Credit card.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't want to, exactly. So Danny got a Home Depot credit card. You don't want to do that. Oh, someone did that for you. Oh, I thought you meant before you were in the business. Oh, okay. Yeah, don't go get another credit card. Don't buy a new car if you can. That actually happened with she went out the next day. We got a house and she went out the next day and bought a car. And this was someone who was my age, but she had never bought a home herself. And so I didn't think to go over it. So that was not it. We did get through, but it was delayed. It was delayed. So explain what the contingencies are. Like I said before, explain why they are in the contract, explain how they protect the buyer, but can also be used to benefit a seller in the seller's market. And, that's usually when they say, well, I hear people are buying homes without any inspection, and then we can have that conversation about what we're seeing mostly in our market. Yes, there are some, but mostly that's not usually what people are doing, and explain that inspections make more sense to them than the appraisal thing. And the appraisal thing is very confusing at this meeting. Like, you can talk about waiving the appraisal, but they don't really get it. I mean, I found I talk a little bit about it if they have some knowledge. If they don't, they just, I don't know. I've failed at that a couple times, and I could talk too much about it. And it was like, no, don't do it. Ask about what they have heard about offers in this market. So I hear everyone's paying, way over on homes. And we could say, well, that's true, but it's really hard right now for a listing agent to price a home because, they go by comps, but it's such a fast forward market. It's very, very hard. So a lot of homes are going over. And so talk about that, but not all. And we're going to have to kind of find the sweet spot that's going to work for you and where you feel comfortable. And, going back to the loan, I should have said this, a lot of times, instead of talking to them about the interest rate, talking to them about the comfortable payment. What is a comfortable payment for you? I find though that waivers when they find out what their payment can't buy. So, like I had a client, she really, is qualified for 250 or something. I mean, she's a first time home buyer, but she really doesn't want a payment. She really said, I only want to be at 150. Well, there's no houses at 150 that she likes. And so, she's kind of gone up to 195, but she says, I can make this payment. I just was thinking, I thought it could be less than my last apartment, and that's not probably going to be the case. And so she's learning as we go, but it's hard. And then I try to go through inspections, a little bit more about appraisal, talk a little bit more about the appraisal if they're interested in that and want more knowledge. Talking about how we're going to, with the pricing, what that really means, talk about signing bonuses. I usually do bring that up because that has been a strategy that I have found very useful in writing offers in this market, trying to get them to sign early and give a signing bonus. My 2 contracts I'm closing this week had those. So that's something that's been very helpful for me. And then this is the part that like, I go back and this is where I try to bring up the wants and the deal breakers again, when they start looking at houses with me online, like, okay, just to make sure they're really honed in on what they truly, truly want. And I go over and I show what is sold with that criteria in the area over the last year. So let's say they wanted to live in Ellisville, for example. I just brought that up. There's been maybe 15 houses from 2 to 300,000 that have sold, and they all went 9% over asking. Well, that's going to tell you, or 5 to 10% over asking. It's going to tell you a little bit about what you're going to have to be able to do to get a house in that market. Then we set up a search on Sierra, I show them because Sierra is our CRM at the Gelman team. You guys might have a different one if you're, using a different one. And then we look at a few properties together, and then, I go back over again, the next steps. Okay. And I always tell, these are the next steps that we're going to work on together. And I just kind of like, I don't think I'm witchy about it or anything. I just think it's like leading a little robot. It's like, okay, so there's the next thing we're going to do. And we just kind of do it. And the next thing we're going to look at a house, so I'll say, let's go look at a house. When are you available? Are you available today to go right now? We could go see if we could set something up, or are you available tomorrow or, Monday or whatever? Like I had one on Saturday. She went to an open house that day because I couldn't go to it. She was going to write a contract, decided not to, but then we looked at a house Sunday, I wrote a contract. Now we didn't get that contract, but it was pretty fast. She's texting me today, 3 properties she wants to go see. So we're moving. She signed the buyer agency because we did write on a contract. So we're going, So, and she was ready. She's living in a friend's house, so she needs a place soon. And then this is something I've been doing that I think is really, I thank them for meeting me, even if we're not going to see a house for a couple days, I always send a thank you email. Thank you so much for taking your time and meeting with me. This is what I'm going to be doing next. This is how I'm going to keep our lines of communication open. And I do try, like I have right now, I don't know. I mean, they're not all A buyers, but I probably have about 10 buyers right now. Some of them are, more fall, but I'm trying to keep in touch with all of them. Like the fall ones, at least once or twice a week, and the other ones pretty much every day. I mean, at some point I'm talking to them every day. How are you doing with that? Did you get that? Just, I don't know, just making them know that I'm aware that they're alive and I'm working with them and I want to make sure that it goes through. There's some days I don't, but especially after the inspections to the next step, there's sometimes a little bit of a break where you're not touching them quite as much, but I try to, just because I feel like they're my client and I want to serve them. And if they have questions, I don't want them to think they can't ask, I don't know. I think that's important. And then, so I reiterate that. So I don't know. I don't have too much to share, but questions, you guys have any questions, or it just says Q&A. Oh yeah, this part. Thank you. Forgot. So this is what I've learned at my buyer's consults. I tend to be too long. I start talking and then they talk and then we talk and then we start talking about their life. And the next thing I know, I've been in there for an hour and a half. And that can be really, really too long. It depends on the person. I think sometimes you can figure that out, but like I've been trying to keep them at an hour, and I think that that's a good amount of time. It gives them enough time to be heard, but it also, helps control your time as well. And like, I've just noticed, don't get too bogged down in all the terms unless they're asking a lot of questions and they seem to really know a little bit and want to know more. If not, I just find it's you almost have to do an offer or two for them to understand it. It just is kind of what it is as a buyer's agent. We have at our team, we have a glossary in the back of our buyer's book. And I find that very helpful, especially for people who is English as a second language. Because we have a lot of clients that are that way, and these terms, they don't know at all what they mean. And I just tell them, look, you're going to have this book. You can always refer to it. But if you don't understand that, always feel free to ask me what this means. Let them know that no question is stupid and that they will never be bothering me. Let them know hours, I don't know what your hours are. I don't really like doing real estate after 9, but I usually am a lot, but I try not to be. And so I let them know if they text me after 9, I'm not going to necessarily be able to get back to them till the morning. But I'm okay with that. Now, some of you have families and that's not, I mean, I have a husband, but I'm okay with doing kind of that because he works a lot at night too. But, some of you might say, I have to shut it off at 6, and that's whatever, that's your life and you have to control that for yourself. And I try to allow them a lot of freedom in the process, meaning like, I try to listen to their recommendations or things that they really want. But I always couch it in terms that, like, oh yeah, this was more for the lender. So like, we always recommend one, but let them know you can use any lender you want. We're not, you don't have to use our lender, but this, I can tell you with our lender, this is what you'll get. And I can set the expectation with our lender, but then let them know they're always free. I'm never, it's totally fine. If they use a different one, just because I want them to feel like they have a choice at what they're doing. And some, like, I had a buyer whose mom insisted he use a credit union. Like, he liked what John had to offer, but his mom insisted he used a credit union, so he didn't really have a choice. I mean, that was kind of what they wanted him to do. Say things once and then say them again in writing or text, because the buying process is overwhelming and we have to guide them through the process and always assure them, like, just that they're the most important thing to them, right, to you right now, and assure them that you're not going to leave them hanging after closing. And sometimes I think that comes back to bite me, but I just feel like it's not just about you making money. I mean, it's really not, because in the long run, it's about you making relationships, and it's about you making another relationship from that relationship you've established so that you can build your business. And I think obviously that's the greatest compliment you can get, is if you've developed a great relationship with someone, they know you have their best interest at heart, and they're going to refer you to their friends and family. And that's what I think we're always trying to do. So I think it's great at the Gelman team because we have client appreciation events. We give out free pies. We do things that are great to have touches with our clients. But I also just sometimes just call and say, hey, how's your new house going? And just find out. Or some of them have had problems, and they'll say, yeah, my gosh, we knew the windows were bad, but we didn't know where they were that bad, so we already replaced them. And those are things we knew, but so things like that. We just assure them, that always have, oh my gosh, vendors that I could, not lenders, vendors that I can give them if they have a need and they need some help trying to get something fixed with their home. But I think that's super important too. And then we didn't talk about this, but I really do think the closing should be a real, like we've heard this before, a celebration for that client. Like, it is a really important time in your life. I've bought 5 homes in my life or something. Every time has been special, and every time has been for us, like, either move up or, something we really wanted in our next home. And so if it's not approached that way, it's kind of a downer. You're just kind of like, okay, now I'm done. I don't get to go around and look at houses with you anymore. I mean, there's some people really like doing that, so it's kind of, but celebrate it. If they have kids, try to include them somehow. I think that's really fun. I try to do that. I'll bring balloons or something if the kid is going to be there, because sometimes they have little toddlers and stuff and they aren't at preschool or something. So I think that's super, super important. And then I guess the other thing is just being okay with saying, if you don't know something, that I'll find out. I don't know, but I will find out. And not feeling like you're a bad agent if you have to do that, because actually every career has that. Every career, someone's not going to know something. So it's not just real estate, it's embarrassing though, sometimes, I guess, when you're in a house and you really don't know the answer to that particular problem with the sewer or whatever, the electrical panel. And, so you have to be careful at what you say, but just say, I can always find out and I'll do some research on that for you. And, I found that to be, I don't know, just honest, and I think that's important. And other than that, I think, the other thing I wanted to say that I didn't put on the slide, but we have transaction coordinators here at the Gelman team. I don't know if everyone on here does, but it's really important to let them know that you're going to get a lot of emails from the transaction coordinator, but I am still, if you have a need, you still come to me. I'm the point person on the deal, and I will also be supporting you and reminding you of these things along the way, so that you're just not going to hand them over to the transaction coordinator and be done. I think that's kind of important too. So questions?
Click on the little Q&A at the top.
Yeah, that's what I meant. There's 2.
Oh, hi.
Somebody-
Could you elaborate more about the signing bonus? Yes, I can elaborate about that. So one of the things we've used, a strategy we've used on the Gelman team, is if, let's say that someone just put a house on the market and let's say they put it on the market on a Friday, and you got to see it on Friday, and you thought it was a great house. And let's just say the price point was 600. I'm just going to go out, and your buyer really wants it. And they're willing to go higher because they know how great of a house it is. And let's say that they wanted to write 629 on this amazing house, but they would be willing to do a $10,000 signing bonus if they signed by Friday night. So you put a timetable on it. Now, it doesn't work on every deal, but it has worked on some because that's pretty appealing if they don't want to have a lot of showings and they just want to be done with it. So some people that's important to them and it's worked well on some deals. How do you handle customers that stop communicating with you after you've showed them properties? Is it an email you send or a text? Well, I usually call and I call and I call. I think phone is always the best. You know, I would probably try to just get those buyers agencies earlier if you can, because it's going to help you not to be, you know, someone just walking away from you. And then if you can't get them by phone, then you can try the other methods, but I would try phone and then maybe both email and text, all three, probably just say, it's okay if you're not in the market anymore, but let's just close this loop. I want to make sure that I've served you to the utmost ability. There. I don't know what there means.
I think it's.
They were just correcting them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, got it. There. Yes, I have another question. Who had a question? Oh,
The room to other agents, when you're talking about your hours, how do you go about doing that?
okay.
What is your language?
So the question is, when you're talking about your hours, how do you go about that? Well, I don't do it too much, honestly, because I don't have young kids anymore. I think you could basically just say, the main hours that I work are blank to blank, 9 to 5. But if you text me, I will try to get back to you if you text me before X. If not, then I will definitely get back to you the next day. And you have to set that time. And just say, you know, I have a family and I need to have some time to do other things that work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can offer some.
Yeah,
So I always ask them what their preferred hours of communication are, and then it opens it up for me to say what mine are. Just be like, great, I have yours down, ask both spouses or people in a transaction, and then I say, you know, my kids get off school around 3, so it's kind of hour for the next couple hours, but here's my availability, here's what you can expect from me, and I've never had a problem with it.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
You were a person.
Yeah, and then it's usually like, oh, let me get you half, or, oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're scanned.
Over here, I do it at the same point when you're asking how they want to communicate, and I say, hey, I'm an early person, like even this morning, somebody texted me at 8, she's like, I'm sorry, I'm like, I've been up since 5, I'm old, that's just how I am. If you call me at 9:30, I'm in bed.
yeah, guys, talk louder so all these people can hear you. Yeah, yeah. So I think, so basically they were just saying, setting the parameters for your schedule and making sure that they are aware, but just let them know you're a person and when you operate best, and hopefully that's when you can communicate. The problem with being a buyer's agent is that homes come on the market on a Friday and they might not be on the market Saturday. And so sometimes we are, you know, I don't know, Danny, you have had a lot of transactions. I mean, you've done a lot. Like, how do you set those boundaries on Friday nights if you want to go out? Like, how do you tell them you can't go see a house on Friday? Oh, no, seriously.
No, I think it just depends what time. If they want to see something at 8 o'clock, unfortunately, I'm unavailable at that time. What's your availability Saturday morning? You know, how's
Mhm.
Saturday at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, right.
And weekends, I don't like doing afternoons. I
Mhm.
prefer mornings.
Yeah.
Get it all done, so then I've got the afternoon to do whatever.
Yeah.
If they can't do mornings, then, you know, I make an exception, but I try and do as early as I can.
Mhm. I like front loading my days too, like that. What?
You know, I can't see it until after 5 or something, which again, typically.
Happens to you? Yeah.
We have to run out and do that. Yeah.
My schedule's not the same every day, so I have some that I kind of build in late nights, like later nights. And I'll tell them that, I guess, when it gets to some later, I can do it on these days.
Like I can.
Yeah, if you can do it, and well, and I'm very honest with you, like, I work late sometimes, and sometimes I don't. So you'll have to communicate with me and like make a decision that day.
As part of getting their availability, it helps you kind of tailor to what their schedule might be and deciding to work with that client.
There's some people, I don't mind talking to you late at night. They're more alert, you know, and they're some of my better clients. But there's some, it's like, if you just text me about something that can be answered in the morning, that's silly. But most people are pretty respectful automatically, you know, so.
I mean, you might have more of a challenge, Destiny, because if they don't know if you're married and have kids, you know, like you just have to set those parameters, I think, you know. I think the biggest thing I've learned though about,
I think you're happy with that.
oh, another question? Who had a, oh, hi, Jeremy.
I was just gonna ask, in terms of, when the sun's going down way early
Yeah.
in the winter months. And folks can't see it until after 5, how has everybody that's been here for a little bit been able to kind of mitigate the challenge of a lot of, or the majority of, let's say their showings during the weekdays might end up being once it's dark, or what have you, or maybe the house doesn't sell as well, or it's they're less.
Well,
likely to go.
there are less buyers over that time period. I mean, there just are, so there's not as many. I mean, I found that if you could get there by 4:30 or 5, if they would take off work to go see that house, I mean, the truth of the matter is they want to see it in the daylight, right? So, I mean, if they really want to buy a house, they're going to work it around. I mean, they're going to make it work because they know they can't see it after 5. I mean, it's dark, at a certain time.
Let them know that too.
Yeah.
I have like a little kit in my car where I have a flashlight, like a powerful flashlight with like a handle on it.
Makes it look like daylight outside.
It's ridiculous. So, but same thing, it's like, hey, it's better to see it during the day, of course, but if this is your only time, we'll walk around.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
foundation and all that stuff.
Well, especially when the house isn't vacant either, thinking about
Mhm.
sellers.
Well, you've still requested the time though.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
take them, if it's evening, and then say, if you love this, drive by tomorrow morning.
That's what my last one said. We had to do an 8 PM because that was the only time they could get there before the deadline. And so we went to go see it that night and then they just drove by the next day to look at the exterior and,
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
see. all
I
that.
haven't,
And send them for a drive-by beforehand is always,
Yeah.
Always have them drive by beforehand.
Or I would.
I think 50% of the time my clients change their minds and they don't like, the exterior of the house, they don't like the neighboring areas.
Mhm.
For one reason or another, they decide not to. move
Yeah.
forward with the house.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. Your
Anytime
employer's
you're-
gotta know so much better.
Yeah.
Saves you a lot of.
As they were agents to do that. Yeah, we're like.
What'd you say, Desi?
You have people that are like, well, can we just go see it now? Like, we're available now.
Well, you say, I'm so sorry, but I can't. I mean,
We don't wanna drive past.
If you
it
can't,
first.
you can't.
I mean, it's situational, but
Yeah.
I always recommend it and I always try and go that route first.
So what about, I sometimes struggle with a buyer agency, the right time to get that signed, because people feel so weird about signing off on something,
Mhm.
especially when it's looked at as like a contract to work with somebody. Not necessarily that they don't wanna work with me or work with that agent, but they just feel like, well, I'm signing this away and I don't even know what we've gotten into yet. But then, like you said, sometimes it's a slippery slope because you start showing and it's hard to have that conversation sometimes. So what do you, I know you said at your consultation. It's always good to mention it, right? Just so they know. It's
I
coming,
mean,
but
I actually had more success getting them early last year, which was weird. I just did it and had them do it right there. I feel as if like, if I do a showing right away and we're vibing on it, I'll just say, hey, I think we had a great meeting. I'm going to send over this buyer's consult. I want to work with you if you're open. And usually if they don't, they'll just tell you in an email. I mean, they're not going to tell it to your face usually, you know what I mean? But usually,
do you
yeah.
go about it by saying?
had one.
This means that I'm working on your behalf and this means.
Yes.
That you can't be contacting, or you can contact other agents, but like, how do you word that?
I don't even say that. I just say, with this sign, I'm going to be working overtime to help you get this house. I'm going to have your best interest at heart. With this sign, you're going to get more services from me because I'm going to be I'm going to be calling expireds. I'm going to be calling off-market properties, but I feel like I can't do that unless we have a mutual relationship with one another. And then they're like, oh, I got to get my act together. I think, yeah. Yeah. And
around, like I can't write any offers unless I have this sign, this one thing just to get out of the way.
yeah, I've done that. Mhm.
Well, and it also, just on that same note, it binds them, you could say, it binds me to have a fiduciary responsibility to you if we have a signed agreement. If not, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I just feel like some people still have because I answered a call.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, and this lady, I was having a lot of trouble getting clarity if she was committed to an agent yet or not.
Mhm.
And I think it's because her significant other had committed to an agent, but she was like, I'm not committed to anybody. And I'm like, but are you working with someone?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, like, I'm ready to go
Mhm.
crazy to work for you, but I don't want to do that you know,
Could
because.
step on anyone's toes.
Yeah, and I just have trouble getting them to understand, like, if we have agreed to work together, I don't want you like clicking a call the agent button on Zillow.
Mhm.
And meeting some random person to go see a house, just because a lot of people don't understand how this industry works that way.
Mhm.
Just tell them, like,
Yeah,
if you wanna see something, make sure you call me, I'm your agent.
Yeah.
well, if it's in a buyer's consultation, like Kathy said, I set it up, I go, look, if we're gonna work together, we have to sign this, and what I say is, I'll take you to see some houses, we gotta make sure we like each other. Well, I like you, that's cool, we gotta make sure we like each other. They laugh, you know what I mean, I'm like,
I
but.
may not like you.
Well, it kind of makes you sound more valuable when you say that, because it sounds like you got a sea of people waiting for your services. Yeah.
So say like, you know, I prioritize my clients, but the
Yes.
ones that are in the front of my head, the ones that I'm working constantly for are the people that I have.
Yeah.
buyer's agencies.
You're not my client, if you're not looking.
Yeah.
So
Somebody that could be a client.
in the Gelman team book that they've got the timeline.
Mhm.
So I always go through the first 2 points. I say, you know, this is our buyer's consultation. It's what we're doing right now. From there, we would decide on a working relationship with each other. I said, I'm not gonna make you sign anything right now. We'll go see a couple of homes together, make sure that we're a
Yep.
good fit for one another. But I always set the expectations that we are going to sign this. It
Yes.
is for a 6-month time frame. If at any point you decide I'm not doing a great job for you or anything like that, we can, you know, we can dissolve it.
Yep.
But it does have to be signed. And just set those expectations up.
I
front,
Yeah.
think
So
that's
then
key
they're
too,
not
because-
overwhelmed, like, wait, what if, you know?
Yeah, it looks official. It, you know, comes in dot loop and it does say contract and all that stuff.
And
But
it
yeah,
has
I
that-
think it's good
That
to-
minimum, like, buyer agrees to pay this much, and they're like, what is that? I didn't say I was. gonna
Well, I always
pay
explain that. Actually, I explained it.
And there's lines through it.
Oh, I've never had somebody ask me about that.
Really?
I explained it up front. I said, I'm gonna send this over and online, blah, 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 you're gonna see this. Usually that would come into play if we found it for sale by owner, if da, 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 da. But normally, you know, in this market, the sellers are usually paying the commission. And that's, I mean, but it's gonna change. So we're gonna have to change that dialogue. Yeah. It's gonna change.
The 6 months, the duration, like default, typically with buyer agent.
That's
I
what we've
always set
used.
One, I always set mine for 60.
And some people might say, I will do it on one contract and then I'll make my decision
Yeah.
type of thing, which,
Same thing with investors. I have to write a new one for every property we write on, because they only do it address specific. They don't sign up.
I've done that. My uncle does that.
But I
well,
think
that makes sense, you know?
But Danny, I like how you say it too, because then it kind of
Mhm.
lets them know, oh my gosh, it's not like your feet are held to the fire and you can't fire me or anything like that. I'm like, either one of us could fire each other.
Yeah.
It's just an email. You know?
Right. Yeah, because then they don't want to sign it because they're like, you know, what happens? if,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Well, and you can also explain to them, like, you're gonna go to some open houses and some, you know, we have this agreement and some agent's gonna ask, are you working with someone? And I would hope that now that we have this agreement, you would say, yes, I am. You know, I mean, I just kind of say it that way because I mean, yeah, you are. Just reminding them,
Wine and dine you.
yeah, you're going steady with your client.
Signs.
Yeah.
I have representation.
I think it's, if you believe you have value, then they're gonna sign it. If you don't believe you have value, then they're not gonna sign it. I think it's a lot of it's your mindset. I really, really do. You have the confidence to go find them a house, and Brittany, you do. So
Thanks, yeah.
you're welcome, Brittany. Yeah.
Before we end, Sarah
Yes.
wants to take a group picture, by the way, so.
Okay.
So I don't forget.
So. are
Okay.
you-
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions for the,
Another question.
one more question for Dina?
Um,
Yeah. Boop, boop, boop.
So when you get all their, like you line up all their expectations, they tell you
Mhm.
they must have their wants and all that kind of stuff. And then it wildly changes. How do you kind of remind them, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said you had to have a fireplace.
It's a, remember you mentioned the fireplace? Okay, are you sure? Yeah, I've decided I don't want that. I mean, that happens.
I
I
know,
mean,
Once people start to look, it's so obvious that
Yeah.
they really get acclimated to like, okay, well, I thought I wanted this, but I can definitely deal without it.
yeah,
For this
Yeah,
price.
right.
or this
Since there's
area.
one home for sale and all.
Yeah.
yeah,
This was a must-have, is that still the case?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's it.
You have good direct link. I mean, I like the way you ask questions.
You're very direct.
But you're direct, but
No one
nice.
thought I liked something like you're-
No, you're direct, but it's very nice. You're very professional. When you say it, you're very professional. Yeah,
That's sassy.
What's your voice?
Yeah. No, it's great. But that's what I mean. She's good at it. Yeah, she's very, very good at
A
it.
little sassy.
She's like, whoa, that's sassy.
That's good, it's a good thing.
Well, and one thing we didn't talk about is I do rely a little bit on our team and the success we've had as a team, and that we can always answer anything that would come up. Our team's gonna have an answer for it because we have so many years of experience on the team.
I mean,
Name drop.
Mark.
Yeah.
You know, he works in this area all the time. You will know, you know.
Yeah.
Name drop.
Yeah, well, and I've done that on my deal in the city. I've used Mount Lamb a lot because I have had some questions on this house in the city. And I said, I have an agent who sells specifically almost all the time in this area, and I'll call him. He's had 9 years of experience down here, you know. So, I mean, that's great. And we can also I also like to, oh, what? Oopsie. It's that I still have a lot of time when it says low battery. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Team leveraging.
Yeah, the team. Oh, and I talk about how we have meetings twice a week. Like a lot of brokerages might have them once a week. We always have them twice a week, and we have a Slack and we communicate that way. And we have off market properties that come up. I mean, I had a call from an agent yesterday on this team, not going to say who, up and asking me about if I had a buyer for a specific home. So, you know, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Yes.
So whenever you ask your clients to do a drive-by beforehand, how do you introduce that to them? Because like, you don't want to be like, don't waste my time. or anything
Right,
like that.
so I always say it during the buyer consultation or the strategy session, you know.
Yeah.
When we start looking at homes, I always recommend that my clients drive by each of the homes before we go and see it, and then I say 50% of the time, you know, for one reason or another, you decide not to move forward with it. And then I just say that it saves
Yeah.
both parties.
When I was a buyer's agent, I would get random texts like, I wanna go see this address, and then I would just respond, have you already driven by this property? What do you think of the neighborhood? Ask them questions like that, and if they haven't driven by the property, just be like, please drive by it, sometimes you can rule it out from the curb, and I don't wanna get there, and then tell them like this.
Yeah.
And also, you know, if you don't have time to drive by it, I recommend doing a Google Earth or something, so at least you can, you know.
See what what it butts up to and that kind of thing. Cause that's a deal breaker. So I've shown way too many homes like that without mentioning that. And I'm starting to use that line, you know, the drive-by thing, because I didn't use that before. I'm like, why am I driving, you know, all the way out here, then I'm driving all the way down. I mean, would you say you went to 4 counties that one day? I was like, poor Dina.
Sometimes the second you pull up, it's like, oh, this is not even gonna work. Yeah.
This is street comfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, also for the newer agents, I think it's important that if you get into a home and they already know that it's not a good fit for them, try and get them out of the home as soon as possible. You know, it's not the right time to be setting up furniture, you know, if you know that it won't work. You know, a lot of times you'll start confusing the homes together, and I don't want you to find something that you love about this home and then you bring it back to all the future homes, you know, oh, I wish it had this. No, let's not even waste our time doing it. Let's, you know.
How do you do that? Because I have not had success. I have this one client who is under contract. Yay. Every showing was 35 minutes. Every showing. And what? Well, I loved her though. I kind of liked her, so I was okay with it. But
What did she want to do in the house?
she was like, well, she had to feel the vibe, and she had to like, she wanted to make sure she was really, she knew there was no, seriously, time. She seriously knew there were so few houses in her price point that she was going to exhaust the house before she said no.
I mean, I would.
You know.
I would start walking them through, you know.
She always brought a friend too, or her brother.
Do you wanna, you know, have you seen the kitchen? Let's go to
Yeah.
the kitchen now. Let's, you know,
Yeah.
go upstairs. Okay, is there anywhere else you wanna take a second look at before we head out?
Yeah.
Like directing the showing.
You know,
And
if
some
they'll
of
just stay in the same room the whole
Yeah.
time. No, we've gotta, you know, let's
Yeah.
see what else this home has. to offer.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes before I get there, I'll say that to like when we're leaving a house.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, this isn't my house, so I'm not offended if you walk in and hate it. If you know in the first place, let's save that time, do something you actually like.
Yeah.
Can I give them permission? 'Cause some people
That's a
do
good
that.
way. I like that. It's a way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll just be polite.
That's great.
Right, like somehow I'll be bummed if they leave earlier. It's like, no, we're good. If you're not gonna buy it, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
I like the Russians too, though. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
One of the most valuable things that I learned when I first became an agent is if you don't control your time, the buyer will.
100%.
Mhm.
So you
So
just have to
hard.
be able to
But
direct it.
that's anywhere needed. Yes, like, so I don't wanna,
Offend them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because, you know, but the reality is that I have to take control, otherwise I'm gonna be running around everywhere. Like a
It's
chicken with my
really a
head cut.
mindset area that you need to work on, really.
Yeah.
Allie, the life coach over here. Yeah. I don't have that in me. I am not,
Okay, no, that one's shut down. We're not going back.
Now, we were back that way. You guys have any other questions?
okay. Thank you all for coming. Hope you have a great day. Bye.